Well, hello everybody. Welcome to lesson number 37. I was just having a little fun there, warming up, getting ready for our lesson, having a little fun playing a classic Wes Montgomery tune called 4 on 6. And I always liked playing over those practice tracks that you can get from various sources these days. One of the main resources of all those practice tracks that I was just using is a place called Jamie Aebersold Records. And you can get those if you go on the internet and find his huge library of jazz and various types of instructional play-along CDs. You might want to explore those. Anyway, so I was playing along to a Wes Montgomery play-along CD, and one of the distinguishing aspects of jazz, and in particular the kind of jazz I was playing right there, you know, kind of post-bebop sort of cool period jazz, is the predominance of just modal changes, like a static key center kind of tune, like in this case G minor, but there's a lot of harmonic changes moving through G minor. There's little modulations that are occurring, and those modulations are characterized as 2/5s. Okay, so that's more or less what I was negotiating through all those changes. I was playing through 2/5s. In other words, a 2 chord to a 5 chord in a key, going to another 2 chord to another 5 chord to another 2 chord to a 5 chord. And it creates all that motion that you hear me when I'm improvising. I'm trying to play over the chord changes by hitting the chord tones of the 2/5 progressions. Right? So you can really hear how that works and how that sounds like a typical jazz type song, and the vocabulary that I was using was typical of a jazz player. Now, one of the best ways you can go about practicing the skill that you need and the technique that you need to play over those kind of tunes is you got to break down what you actually utilize mostly on those kind of progressions, and that's your arpeggios. Okay, so we've talked a lot about arpeggios. In other lessons, we've introduced you to the major 7 arpeggios in 5 positions, dominant 7th in 5 positions, and minor 7th in 5 positions. And there's still some other ones to learn, but right now, major, minor, dominant arpeggios are all you really need for a progression like I was playing right there. But you can hear how fast they kind of connect together, so it's a lot of skill still just using those 3 chord qualities. Okay, so what I'd like to do in this lesson is talk about taking a particular set of chord changes and focused emphasis on playing over the chord changes with specific emphasis on chord tones, and specific chord tones in particular. So what I've got here behind me is, actually in this case, let me bring up another board here before I get into my lick here. Okay, so you can see that I've got the diatonic harmony of G major written out here, right? The diatonic harmony represents the chord harmony in the key of G. Okay, so when you have a 2-5 or a 2-5-1, all that simply means is the 2 chord in the key is moving to the 5 chord and moving to the 1 chord. So you can see in this progression right here, that's exactly what's happening. You can hear a 2 to a 5 chord to a 1 chord in the key of G. Now, as you can see also, the next part of the progression moves actually to the 4 chord. I didn't mark that down, but that sounds nice after the 1 chord, so I put it in there. So it's actually a 2-5-1-4, which is right here. Now, it's still in the key of G, but we would characterize this next part here where it goes to B7, going to E minor, as a 5-1 in E minor. Okay, so this is something we've talked about in other lessons, where you have the major tonal center of the key, and then you have an internal minor center. And the internal minor, or relative minor of G major, is E minor. Okay, so when you hear this progression, you'll hear the B7 that doesn't necessarily isn't truly diatonic to G, but it's functioning as a variation of the 3 chord in the key of G major, and it's setting up the 6 chord in G major, which makes it sound like 5-1 in E minor, the relative minor. Okay, so you have a classic progression here that I've written, and this is why it's good to practice these kind of progressions, because if you want to get good at playing music, you have to practice the common chord progressions that you see over and over again. Okay, so that makes you a better player. So let's listen to it and see what it sounds like. I'll do it again. So that simple little progression right there, it gives you the color of the diatonic major key and the relative minor key in a very musical and very common progression. And you'll want to practice these chords in all different keys. I've just given it to you in the key of G today. Now, what I want you to do for this lesson, though, is take not only the arpeggios, but let's talk about playing specific notes of the arpeggio. So let's just talk about maybe using one position of an arpeggio right now. Let's say we were going to play the A minor 7 shape right here. Okay, so we know the form that we would play here. We've learned this before. It's the one that looks like this. Right? We've talked about many positions to utilize there, but this is a convenient position for us. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only way to use it. A lot of times, one of the best notes that you can hit on the downbeat of any chord is the third of the chord, because the third has the most amount of harmonic information related to the chord. So when you play the third of the chord on the downbeat, you really make it sound like you're playing A minor in this case, because you're hitting the minor third, right, on the downbeat, and you can hear the flavor of the A minor coming out. So whether you hit the minor third here, or right here in the middle octave, or right here, it just sounds more like A minor when you start your melody there. Okay, so what you could try to focus on is maybe hitting the third of each of these chords on the downbeat. Bless you. And that would mean that you're going to really have to think about what you're doing here. You might want to actually map out, okay, well, here's the third of the A minor chord. Okay, and I could play maybe eighth notes like that. And then the third of the dominant chord, D7 right there, is just a half step below. So that's F sharp. Because there's D7. Oops. Okay, so if I chose to play the A minor 7 from here, and then I hit the F sharp, now, once again, the downbeat is really clear. On the beginning of the second bar, what chord I'm playing the D7 chord, because I hit the F sharp really strongly. there's the ascending up the chord. Now, what's the third of G? You're going to answer that for me, right? The third of G is B natural. Okay, so that works out pretty good because I'm ascending from the D7 chord. And there's the B right on the top E string. So once again, it gives me the flavor of the G chord really strongly by hitting the third. And if I were to continue that concept on the C major chord, I'd hit the E natural. Right? And you really get the flavor of the harmony really clearly with just hitting the thirds. Listen to the chords now. And listen to my little melody I've made up. Right? Can you hear the harmony without even, it doesn't even warrant me playing the chords. You can tell just in the way that I'm making the notes link together. Okay? So that's what I want you to do for this progression. Now, you can see what I've just done right here is I've written out the actual lick that I was just showing you. Okay? So that's what I've written there, and that's what I just played. So you can see that I've got the tablature underneath it to help you figure it out. But this is all it sounds like again. Now, I didn't continue writing it on the C major chord, but that's okay. You get the idea now. Every one of these downbeats here is a third of the dominant chord. Now, you'll notice that I even used a chromatic setup to the third of the G chord. Now, why did I do that? Doesn't it just sound good? Listen to how it sounds again. Right? It just sets it up more strongly. And this note, while it's not in the key of G, it is setting up one of the strongest notes in the key of G by walking into it. Okay? So notice the tablature underneath it. Let's try it together here. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and... One, two, try it again. Okay. Now, like I said, if you wanted to go to the C major chord on the progression right there, you'd want to hit the E natural somewhere in this position. Maybe you could hit it here or here, but you just want to work on that concept of emphasizing, or what I refer to as targeting chord tones. Okay? We're targeting chord tones by landing on a specific chord tone on a downbeat. And a downbeat is basically a downbeat of 1, or let's say 3 or 2 and 4, something on a strong emphasis downbeat. Okay? Now, you could do this with other tones too. You could do it with the root. You could do it with the fifth, the flat 7, or the major 7. You can do any of the chord tones in a chord, root, third, fifth, or 7th. I'm just telling you that the third is usually the strongest indicator of the chord sound. So let's get back to our progression right here. And I'll put this back up. Fortunately, you're going to have that lick memorized now. But now let's just, I'll give you a little help here. I'll write the chord tone that I want you to hit, and I'll circle it. Okay, so here's the chord tone that I want you to hit. I want you to hit C there. I'm sorry. Sorry to have my back towards you here, guys. I'm just writing something down. F sharp, B. These aren't chords. These are the chord tones I want you to land on. E. On the B chord, a real strong note is the third again, and that would be, what do you think it's going to be? Let's ask you. It's not D natural, but D sharp, because it's a major third in this chord now. And then finally, on the E minor chord, the third is G. So those are the chord tones I want you to emphasize. Okay, so let's focus on that. And I've got a little track for us, of course. And it's going to be a little bit more of a swing feel. So that means we're going to have you know, a swing eighth note. So like. Okay, so let's see what the tempo is we've got here. Piano player time. How about that? Okay. Let's just see if we can play the arpeggios just from the root right now. Now, that might have been just as difficult as anything else. I just played the root of the chords, okay? I really had to kind of think about jumping around to make sure that I hit the downbeat on the root, okay? But we have our lick now. So we can play that in there, and that's going to sound even better because that's the thirds that we're emphasizing there. Okay, so let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to improvise. Lick. Okay, so you can just totally take it anywhere you want after you do that real regular practice and systematic approach to playing over a progression like that by emphasizing targeting chord tones, okay? So you might want to practice it at a slower speed and really just say, okay, today I'm going to do nothing but hit thirds from my arpeggios in one position on the downbeat of every bar. And I'm just going to make up a simple progression, and I'm going to see if I can consistently get good at seeing the thirds of each of my chords right in one position and really make the sound of the chords come out with just that exercise. And you'll be amazed at what that will do to your playing. It really will improve it radically if you get to the point where you can see those notes and also hear them really naturally. Now, if I were just going to do it and use my ear and not be so stuck on playing arpeggios, I could just make it a lot more musical, and I would probably add other notes along the way. But just emphasizing the thirds still makes the harmony sound really strong. So I'm just going to play around it now and just use the thirds, but mix in other things too. Okay? This is the last time I'm going to play, and I want you guys to have a good lesson and keep practicing this stuff really hard, and we're going to check back up with you on the next one. All right, so here's the thirds and the downbeats along with some other stuff. 1, 2, 3. everyone. Have a good time, and I'll see you later.